There is a strange irony in the world. The strongest men, the ones who shape destinies, who carry burdens others cannot bear, who walk paths no one else dares to tread, these men are always alone. Not necessarily in the physical sense, but in the way they experience life. They move through the world like wolves, untethered, independent, always watching, always thinking, never quite belonging. And yet they are not lonely. You see, most people fear solitude because they have never truly met themselves. They spend their lives filling the silence, avoiding their own minds, drowning in the noise of crowds, distractions, meaningless conversations. But a strong man, he does not run from solitude. He embraces it, because he knows that in the quiet, in the stillness of his own company, he finds something that most will never discover: power. To be alone is to be free. Free from the expectations, the illusions, the masks that society forces upon the weak. The strongest men are not bound by the need to be understood, nor do they seek validation from the world. They do not bend their will to fit into the mold of acceptability. Instead, they carve their own path, even if that means walking it alone. It is a hard truth, but one worth understanding. The deeper a man's strength, the fewer people he can relate to. Strength does not come from comfort. It comes from suffering, from struggle, from being tested by fire and not breaking. And when a man has endured what others have not, he sees the world differently. He speaks a language that few understand. He moves with a purpose that others do not share. And so, naturally, he finds himself alone. But solitude is not a curse. It is not something to be pitied. It is a privilege, a gift granted only to those who are willing to embrace it. Because the truth is, only in solitude does a man discover who he really is. When there is no audience to impress, no opinions to consider, no approval to seek, what remains? That is the essence of true strength. A strong man does not fill his life with meaningless companionship. He does not surround himself with people simply to avoid the discomfort of being alone. Instead, he chooses his company carefully, selectively. He would rather walk alone in truth than be surrounded by people who do not understand him. Because the strongest men do not need others to complete them. They are already whole. And yet here lies the paradox. It is precisely this self-sufficiency that makes them the most magnetic. There is a quiet power in a man who does not chase, who does not beg for attention, who is perfectly at peace in his own solitude. He does not need to be desired, and yet he is. He does not seek admiration, and yet he receives it. Because people are drawn to what they cannot control. They are intrigued by what they cannot fully understand. And there is nothing more compelling than a man who stands alone, unshaken, untamed, completely and unapologetically himself. But this is not the loneliness that weak men fear. This is not isolation in despair. This is solitude in mastery. The kind of solitude that breeds wisdom, that fosters creativity, that sharpens the mind and fortifies the soul. A man who is alone is a man who cannot be manipulated, who cannot be swayed by the opinions of the herd. He is beyond their reach, and that terrifies them. Most men live their lives seeking belonging, craving acceptance, desperate to be liked. But in doing so, they dilute themselves. They become less of who they are. They trade their authenticity for approval. The strongest man refuses to make that trade. He would rather be misunderstood than be false. He would rather be alone in his truth than be surrounded by people who do not see him. And so he walks alone, not out of necessity, but out of choice, because he understands something that most never will. True power is not found in numbers, nor in validation, nor in the opinions of others. True power is found in the ability to stand alone, to think for oneself, to move through life with a quiet confidence that does not waver. The strongest men are always alone, not because they must be, but because they choose to be. Because in solitude, they find clarity. In solitude, they find strength. And in solitude, they find the one thing that most will spend their entire lives searching for: themselves. And once a man has found himself, he is untouchable, he is unstoppable, he is free. If you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.